get ready to get sticky. Sticky Situations is sponsored by Corona Crush. Corona Crush is creating Jewish couples always. Join the Facebook group. Just search Corona Crush and look out for virtual speed dating events happening every other week. They're 100% free and 100% Jewish. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Sticky Situations. I'm your host, Rachel. You already know that because I'm unforgettable. Everybody, please go, whatever platform you're listening on, go follow or subscribe. If there's the option to rate a review, please do that. Only good ratings, though, and only good reviews. Like your mom told you, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And also, if there is a platform that we are not on that you would like us to be on, just send me a DM. I'll give you the contact information in a little bit, and I'll see what I can do for you. Please also go like Sticky Situations page on Facebook. Follow Sticky Situations Pod on Instagram. Follow Sticky Situations Pod on TikTok. And yeah, and if you want to be a guest on my podcast, because all of my guests are great, I have applications. You could find them on the Instagram page, or you could just message me, or I've been posting these episodes in Corona Crush. The link is also on the episode description. It's very easy to find, so definitely apply to be a guest. It's great. If you'd like to date me or one of my guests, I also have applications. Those are on the Instagram and Facebook page, but if you want them, just send me a DM on Instagram, or you can send me an email at stickysituationspod@gmail.com. Okay, now that we took care of business, I have an extra special guest today. Everybody, Sticky Situation Nation, please welcome to the podcast my friend, Lisa. Lisa, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I mean, we're roommates, so we live in the same apartment, so...
It was a long walk to get here.
It was a long walk.
I had to look both ways before I crossed the hallway. I'm glad I made it safely.
Yeah, not even, like, the hallway, because we joke about that with our neighbor who lives down the hall, who, like, comes over and hangs out with us. But, like, just, like, across the apartment.
Like 3 doors down, but not the band. Actually, 3 doors down.
Yeah. But, okay, so Lisa, before we get into everything, can you tell my listeners just a couple basic information facts? So can you please tell everyone your age, your location, your relationship status, and your religious identification?
Okay. So, hi everyone, I'm Lisa, I'm 25, I live in New York City with Rachel, like she mentioned, 3 doors down, super far, and I am single, and my religious identification, I hate these religious boxes, so I would describe myself as modern Orthodox, on the more modern side of modern Orthodox, keep Shabbos, keep kosher, I wear pants, and I wear skirts and dresses in religious settings, so I just feel like the need to clarify that, because everyone puts it into boxes, so, modern Orthodox, but I suppose with like a little asterisk on the more modern side of modern Orthodox, but, open-minded, love religion, God's great, and now we're here.
Yeah, it's my new question that I started asking guests, just so my listeners can get, like, just a general idea of, like, what pool we're dating off of. Also, like, I don't know, I fall probably in a very similar category as Lisa, as you guys know from all of my previous episodes, so it's just helpful to know when I'm like, oh yeah, this guy was a little more religious than me, or a little less religious, like, just kind of where that is.
And also that sliding scale with religion, it's very specific. Like, although, someone could keep Shabbos or kosher, there's certain intricacies with keeping kosher and Shabbos and, Shomer Negiah and all of those things that it's tough. Everyone identifies very uniquely and very different. It's very individualized, which is one of the most interesting things about religion, but also is one of the things that makes dating relatively complicated, because some people really like where they practice and aren't open to changing that.
Yeah, and also I think not even open to changing where they practice. They're not open-minded about other people doing something that's slightly different than them, as long as their core values are the same. Like,
exactly.
Like, if it made such a big difference to my husband about, like, the oven, I feel like that's a little bit different than him telling me to wear skirts.
Exactly,
like,
exactly.
If he was like, oh yeah, cool, like, we only have one oven, but I think we should wait 24 hours in between, it's like, okay, maybe we get a big toaster oven for dairy, like, there are compromises.
Exactly. And also, when you're dating someone, there's a certain amount of personal growth that's going to happen, and religious growth too, as you continue to get to know each other and grow in the relationship. So I think that's really important, and that's one of the most exciting things, but also it makes dating very difficult when it comes to religious growth.
Yeah, I agree. Well, anyway, Lisa, do you want to start and tell us some of your stories? Lisa has great stories. She told me, like, before, like, in our prep that, like, I probably know all of her stories already just because, like, we chat because, like, we do live together. But her stories are great, which is why I asked her to come on the podcast in the first place. So I'm excited for Sticky Situation Nation to hear Lisa's stories.
Yeah, so before I get into it, I think it's really important to share a little bit about how I view dating. So I really enjoy meeting new people, just in general. I always love schmoozing with people on the street, grocery shopping or whatnot. I always love talking to new people. And dating, it can be pretty nerve-wracking. So rather than, getting frustrated when it's only a first date or only a second date or something like that, I view dating as it's an opportunity. It's an interaction, and you learn something new. So no matter what, you're winning. There's something positive. There's something good coming out of it. So rather than it being like, oh man, it's only one date, it was a short-term connection or something like that, it's like, hey, you're winning. It's a new connection. You're learning something new. It's very exciting. So that's my hot take on dating and meeting new people, to keep it interesting and exciting, and to not get me down while in the process of trying to find the right person. So that's my 2 cents. So like Rachel and I were talking about before, like values, and as long as the core values are the same, then you can grow, and there's compromises that can be made religiously. So I went to a Shabbaton, and like these single Shabbatons, like they try and make an even number of guys and girls, and it's always complicated. Almost always there's so many more girls than guys. It was a good Shabbaton, met a bunch of really nice people, mostly women, and I met this guy at the Shabbaton, and he seemed really nice, and there were a couple of people who I went with, and he befriended another one of the friends who I went with. Awesome, wonderful. A few days after the Shabbaton, he reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to hang out with him in addition to another girl, like going out to dinner with him. And I'm like, wait, is this a double date, but there's 2 of us and 1 of you? Like, I'm a little bit confused here. And he's like,
it's like a 2-on-1 date from The Bachelor.
Yeah, I was like, is this a friend thing? Are you bringing another guy?
Who's gonna get the rose?
Yeah, right? Like, I will go out and buy a rose myself. Like, what is the situation here? Like, he clarified. He was like, oh, well, I wasn't sure if you were interested in me. I'm like, okay, I'm interested in going on a date with you. So it's like, okay, let's just go on a date together. Okay, confusing. I got the rose. Yay. So we went out on the date.
You got upgraded from a 2-on-1 to a 1-on-1.
Yeah, exactly. It was very confusing, but I'm glad we were on the same page at that point. So the date went pretty well. Like, he was a good conversationalist. Like, it was a nice dinner. Like, all went really well. And then at the end of the date, I'm walking him back to the subway, and he reveals that he believes in old family values.
Wait, you were walking him back to the subway?
Yeah. So I believe in chivalry, but I've learned not many other people do. I think it's a great idea.
Well, you walking the guy?
Yeah, he was coming from, I think it was Long Island.
Okay.
So I walked him to the subway. So, someone's got to keep chivalry alive. You should see Rachel's face right now.
Never in my wildest dreams would I walk a man back anywhere. Unless it was like... Unless I just, like, wanted to spend more time with him. Like, I've had situations where, no, I actually haven't. Have I? No.
So the restaurant closed, and we wanted to spend more time talking, and he was like, oh, it's getting late, I have to go back home, which I understand, like, it would take him at least an hour to get back home. So, walking and schmoozing while we're heading back to the subway, and he reveals that he believes in old family values. Now, I don't have anything wrong with old family values. However, my values are very different.
Yeah, you walked him to the subway.
Yeah, so I look for more of like the equal partnership type of thing, where we'll share the family responsibilities. And he said, almost verbatim, he firmly believes it's the man's duty to be the breadwinner, and the woman should only worry about the children in the home. And I was a bit lost for words at that point.
But wait, did he have a good job where he could be the breadwinner? Because I find that these guys say these things, and then, like, they'll say numbers, and I'm like, that ain't mathin'. Like,
so he was going back to school, which was, great, good for him. He had a long way to go with school, which was fine. I'm very open-minded about that type of thing, but I was also like, I don't want the...
How are you going to take care of the home and the children if he's in school? Like,
so
how
exactly.
Are you going to pay rent?
Exactly. That was my thought as well. I'm like, well, you know, what if, you know, down the line, talking about children, say the salary difference, let's say I'm making more money than you, like, would that be a conversation about who potentially would take time off to raise the kids? Like, is that a topic of conversation? And he's like, no, well, you wouldn't be working to begin with. And I'm like, wait, what? I love my job. I can't imagine just dropping everything for a family. I can't imagine that. And the way it was also shared, it wasn't really a topic of conversation. It was more of a statement. This is what it is. There's no budge room. This is what it is. Take it or leave it. And we left it in a way of, like, agreeing to disagree. And I happened to have liked him. I thought he was very nice, aside from the old family values thing. So I'm like, hey, I want to hear you out. I'm interested in hearing a little bit more about that. So later he actually said no via text, that he wasn't interested in discussing it more, which I think proves my point, like what we were talking about religion. Like, it's very difficult to date sometimes when some people are very firm in their beliefs, and, like, there isn't any amount of, you know, conversation about it. Like, they just, like, say it as it is, take it or leave it. And, like, the old family values thing, like, that wasn't a topic of conversation.
Wait, did this guy live at home at his parents' house?
Offhand, I can't recall. It was a bit ago. But it was just, like, the way he delivered it. I was like...
I just find it funny.
Oh, that's a little bit different. You know, I'm interested in hearing a little bit more about, like, what you mean by that. And then he's like, oh, I'll think about it. And then later by text, he's like, nope. And I'm like, okay, you know, more fish in the sea, you know.
It's funny because, like, the only times I've had that conversation seriously with guys, like, they're actually, like, yeah, I've had guys, like, say that to me on dating apps, and they're, like, living at home with their parents and, like, don't really have a great job. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I happen to hate my career, and if anybody is, like, a billionaire and wants to just come wife me up and, like, let me just, like, I don't really want to take care of the house, though. I want a housekeeper. Like, just want to, like, marry me and let me be, like, a lady of leisure all day. Like, maybe I'll take care of the kids, but, like, I don't know. I'm down for that. But that's only because I hate my job. I feel like if someone really likes their job, but also, like, maybe I'll like my job a different time.
There you go. That's the spirit.
Yeah, because
hopefully the next one's better.
When the opportunity was actually seriously presented to me, I was like, oh, heck no, I am working. I like my independence. I like making money. I like having a job. But yeah, I just find it ironic, the guys who, like, say that. Like, yeah, when I had that conversation with my ex, it was very different circumstances. But guys who, like, say it on an app, it's like, I actually had a situation this week. This guy's, like, messaging me, and he's, like, acting like a big shot, like, he wants to take care of me and all of this. And I'm like, okay, dude, you haven't even met me. But, like,
ooh la la.
Like, saying all these things. And then he, like, asked me how much money I make, and I didn't say.
Wait, did he have your phone number already, or were you still on the app?
No.
Okay.
He had my phone number.
I'm glad at least it was on texting, and he didn't ask it outright on the app, because that would have been some serious chutzpah.
Yeah, he, like, asked me how much money I make, and I'm like, I'm not telling you. And then he's like, but he told me he had, like, you guys know, I'm an accountant. I've worked in corporate America for 6 years of my life. Like, whatever. You can guess my salary. But it's, like, a certain level of, like, yeah, I've been working in corporate America for 6 years. And he named a career that was equivalent, if not more, money. Like, he told me he was a corporate attorney. And I'm like, oh, corporate attorneys make bank. So I was like, okay, cool. Corporate attorney.
I wonder if he liked his job.
And then wait, hold on. So he tells me all of these things. And then he also, like, within the conversation, before he told me how much money, he's like, oh, yeah. He's like, oh, do you live alone with roommates? I'm like, oh, I have 2 roommates. Like, areas of the city. And he lives in an area of the city similar to the area of the city that I live in. Probably a little bit, pretty comparable in price. Maybe a little cheaper, but not that much. And he's like, oh, yeah, I live in a 1-bedroom apartment. And, like, a 1-bedroom apartment in New York City is expensive, guys.
They're like $4,000.
Like, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then he throws out a number, like, after he asked, because he's like, okay, do you make in this range?
Is he trying to guess how much money you make?
He was, like, asking me a range, and I'm like, yeah. And then I was like,
ask me out to dinner first. At
like,
least one dinner, maybe 2.
I know. I was like, I assume you do also, because it was a range that's pretty normal for someone who is around my age. Like, he was the same age as me. And I'm like, okay, working in a big corporate job. And he's like, oh, don't assume. And then he throws out this number that's like half of my number. And I'm like, how do you live? Like, this math is not mathin'. Like, math ain't mathin'. Like, you tell me you live this, like, life and you're doing all these things. And, I mean, maybe his parents bankroll his
rent stabilized?
I don't think so. Like, he lives in a nice area. Like, I'm like, you're either, like, lying to me about something. Like, maybe put a 1 in front of that number, or, like, a 2, or, like, some zeros at the end. But, like, no. I was like, okay, so why?
Maybe he stayed with the same job since post-college. That was one of the best things for me in my career, was changing jobs. Man, that was a good salary increase.
I stayed at the same job for 5 years, and I still had, like, pretty decent... But either way, it was just funny because, like, he's talking this big game, and then he throws out a number that, like, is lower than what I started with. And I'm like, are you for real? Like, right now, you're just, like, telling me these things? And then he's like... oh, that's so attractive to me that you have such a good career. I'm like, buddy, I hate my career. So don't let that be attractive to you. I am not bankrolling your life. I am looking to quit my job. So
maybe he was looking for a sugar mama.
I know. I'm like, I'm not rich enough to be a sugar mama. I'm not rich at all. Like, listen, if I was rich enough to be a sugar mama, I would live a lot differently.
I like to say I have enough dough to make cookies with.
Yeah, I can make cookies, but they're going to be chocolate chip. Or maybe a different type, but not like anything like crazy. But I'm just saying, it was just annoying to me, and I'm like, okay, like these guys talk a big game, like, oh, I want you to stay home, I want to take care of you and all this, and I'm like, do you guys know what the cost of living is in America? Like, do you know how much private day school costs?
And it's very attractive to hear people with, you know, different types of jobs, you know, something out of the norm. So it's a good...
Yeah, I'm not hating on people who make lower salaries. I'm hating on people who are dumb and just, like, have this salary, and they're like, oh, yeah, but I want to take care of you. I want to be the breadwinner. And it's like, okay, be realistic.
And the old family values, that's exactly what they are. They're a little bit old. They're a bit antiquated. They're not necessarily accurate and lining up with the times. And I think it's a nice sentiment, but also we have to be realistic about where we're at in our lives and where our partner is in their lives as well, to see what makes the most amount of sense for the family. But, you know, that's my opinion. I believe in it, but it doesn't mean other people do. But it's a good segue into my next story. I actually didn't write this down, but when Rachel was talking, it made me think of it. So I'm always down for a good adventure. I really enjoy new experiences. So I just come back from this really big international trip. It was a big hiking trip. It was a lot of fun. And I had a friend getting married literally the next day. I told them I was coming back from this international trip. But they're like, please, 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 we haven't invited a lot of friends. I'm like, okay, fine, but I'm going to wear a mask the whole time. And I went to the wedding, and I didn't really know many people. You know, I met her. She lived in the same area. I met, you know, who's now her husband a couple of times at Shabbos meals. They seemed really nice, so I was really excited to go and to support them. And someone who was sitting across the table from me at the wedding, really nice girl. Yeah, we get schmoozing as I like to do with people. And you know, comes up in conversation, you know, two women about the same age, you know, asking if I've met anyone interesting, if I'm single, you know, if I'm looking. I'm like, yeah, I'm single. I wouldn't say I'm not looking, so, yeah, sure, I'm always interested in meeting new people. And she mentioned she has this guy who's friends with her, who went to college with her, and he lives in Florida. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, he has his own house. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, and he's renovating it himself. And I'm like, okay, I'm interested. Like, I want to hear more. So she texted him while we're at the wedding. And I got his number, and we were texting for a bit. And we arranged for a FaceTime call together. And, of course, he's really proud of his house, and he's showing me his house, and he's walking around, and I got the whole grand tour. Beautiful house, like, really well done. He's done such a nice job. And just like this first story, you know, the end of our conversation just, like, ended in, like, took a direction I was not expecting. He was like, so this is my home, and I can't wait to fill it with a wife and children. And I'm like, excuse me? And he's like, yeah, I can't wait for someone to move down here and have children as soon as we get married. And I'm like, is that a question? He's like, no, that's a statement. That's just what I want. And I'm like, okay, is that, you know, are you looking for that? Is that up for a conversation? He was like, no, that's what I want. And I'm
like, still single? Because honestly, I'm down.
I'll text him. I'll see if he's still single. But it was just like the way that was delivered. I was just like, what? Are you just like trying to fill your home? Like, are you interested in meeting a partner? You know, that best friend, that type of relationship. Like, that's what I'm looking for. And it was just like wild. And it was a connection through some random person who I met at a wedding. So I'm always down for a conversation or adventure. It was definitely an interesting connection. I'm glad I made the connection. He had a lot of really interesting insight about insulation, and we talked about all sorts of funky home improvement type of things. I was super excited about it. I really enjoyed it.
Really good at home improvement. She literally told me last night that two of our neighbors separately, like, made appointments to schedule her to be, like, a handyman. I'm like, are you charging them? Like,
yeah, so, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, a neighbor needed her coat rack hung, so I hung that up, but we had to take a painting off the wall, so I put the painting in her bathroom, and then she needed, 2 paintings rehung and re-leveled, so I re-leveled all of those, and then something else needed to be re-leveled.
Yeah, and then, why are you getting paid for this?
Well, a different neighbor today who asked me to hang up 3 shelves for them, they bought me lunch, which was really, really nice. So unnecessary, but was so nice of him. And
no, it's necessary.
It's actually going to be my dinner, so I'm very excited about that. But yeah, I really like home improvement type things, and I've really tricked out the apartment with as many things as I can think of. Like, I added a shelf in my closet and stuff like that. But yeah, home improvement and like working with my hands, that really excites me. I have a whole set of power tools, the whole thing. I've lived in a bunch of different apartments before, and there's always been things I wanted to fix. So I always like being prepared for any occasion. So anytime anyone posts in our building group chat, hey, anyone has a drill? I need some help. So I message them privately. I'm like, I have a drill and I'm happy to help. What's up?
Oh my gosh.
So
One
much
day
fun.
maybe you could build your own house.
Oh, I'm so down.
Or like
100%. I'm so down.
I could see you getting like a log cabin somewhere in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, for sure.
No, you would get a piece of land in the middle of nowhere and just build a log cabin.
So I actually had dinner with a friend earlier this week, and they were saying, they're like, I've got some money that I just want to burn, and I'm like, okay, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to buy this antique car, and if the antique car sale doesn't come through, then I'm just down for anything. I'm like, hey, you want to buy a piece of property in upstate New York? And he's like, yeah, I'm down. I'm like, great, we'll put our house.
He's single?
He is, but I think he's on a bit of a different religious page. He's so sweet. He's really, really nice.
Okay. I'm like, money to burn.
But we'll check out Florida guy. We'll see if he's single first to see if that's a good fit. But yeah, I think like the values thing, I think there's so much in dating. Like, it's good to date someone who's so different from you, but as long as those core values are the same or similar, then the relationship has so much potential, and everything does not have to line up. Not at all. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of spicy foods, but say someone I date loves spicy foods. Awesome. Kudos. Good for them. But as long as the core values are the same, that's what I think is the most important thing.
Unless they're vegan.
Not a fan of vegans?
I don't think I could. I actually had this conversation over Shabbat. I just don't think I could marry a vegan.
Why not?
I don't know.
What if they're still okay with you eating meat?
I feel like their core values are so different than mine.
It could be also, for health needs too.
It's so hard to cook for them. Vegetarian is one thing. Vegetarian is fine, but vegan I feel like is so difficult. You can't use eggs. You can't use honey. You can't use dairy.
Applesauce is a good eggs replacement.
Yeah, I don't know. If a nice vegan boy who was rich and everything else I was looking for wanted to date me, I wouldn't say no. I would try it, but I like meat.
Well, I guess thank God for, Gardein and what are the other brands?
Oh, yeah, they can eat that. I'm still eating meat. Yeah.
There you go. There's hope yet out there for you yet, vegan guys. So I think another, fascinating trend that I found with dating is, if people are interested in active dating or if it's more of passive dating. Mm-hmm. Like, someone tells them they should date someone, so they date them, but they don't necessarily want to, but they just go on the date because they should. So,
it's like every guy I go out with.
Hopefully that will change soon.
Just kidding, everybody. Just kidding. Some guys I'm excited about, rarely, but sometimes.
Hopefully there'll be some guy out there that excites you in just the right way very soon.
As you guys can tell, I'm... yeah.
It's an adventure.
Yeah, my life has been an adventure the past few weeks, but yeah. Anyway.
Hopefully it'll take a positive, exciting turn soon. So this guy who I met, online dating, I honestly don't remember which app exactly. He seemed really interesting. He did ask for my phone number. I will give him that. But I initiated the date. He wasn't really quite sure of where to go. He's from Jersey, so I selected the location. He asked me to pay for my ticket. Okay. He asked if I could meet him there. Okay. And then we did the date. We went to the Museum of Illusions. By the way, do not go there on a first date. It was so awkward. What an odd, I don't know, it's just not an ideal place for a first date. It's a lot of opportunities to take pictures. And considering it's a first date with someone you don't know, I have pictures of this guy who I went on one date with, but they're cool pictures, so I don't quite know what to do with them. And the date was going well enough that, he's like, yeah, I'm getting kind of hungry. Would you like to get something to eat? And I'm like, yeah, that would be great. And he's like, oh, where would you like to go eat? I'm like, I don't know. I don't quite know what's around here. It's like, he's like, I don't know what's around here either. And just kind of looks at me expectantly. And I'm like, okay. So I picked where we were going to go eat. But it was just I felt like I was taking myself out on a date. And I get being unfamiliar with a new area or being unfamiliar with what's available to eat. But it was just it felt like a very passive date. I much rather would have taken myself out on a date. Maybe I would have enjoyed the Museum of Illusions a little bit more. But it was just, when I wasn't initiating the conversation just stalled. And it was just quiet. And at a certain point in my life, I've gotten very comfortable with the silence. So I was just like, yup, just hanging out here. And I just don't want to go on a date with another person and be the only active participant on the date. At that point, I'd much rather take myself out for a date for the evening and go see a movie or go see a concert or something like that. But I don't want to be the only participant when going out on a date with someone. I was very confused. I really wanted to ask him, do you want to be here a couple of times? But I didn't want to offend him.
I would have asked him.
It was bizarre.
I've lost my filter. With all this dating stuff, I've lost my filter, and I would have been like, do you even want to be here? I'm going to go home.
I will say slightly redeeming. We don't live particularly close to the Museum of Illusions. He did drive me back home, which I did really appreciate. It was very nice. But I was also a little bit...
He had a car. He should have driven you home.
I agree. But also, on a first date, I was a little bit, uneasy, having him drive me back home. Kind of I don't necessarily want them to know where I live. That type of situation. But maybe that's just me and being, a little extra guarded.
I agree.
Yeah, at the end of a first date, that did not go well at all. When I was living in a different state, and the guy offered to call me an Uber. And I was just like, no, thank you. And he, did call me an Uber, and I ended up picking up a location down the street from my apartment because I was so mortified, and I did not want this guy to have the address to my apartment. So, stay safe out there, ladies. Gentlemen, you too. But it was just, not necessarily the most comfortable thing. But, yeah, definitely looking for that active participant in a date. Guys, if you don't want to go on a date, don't. I'm not forcing anyone to go out on a date by no means, but, if you want to go on a date, go on a date. But if you don't want to go on a date, just cancel. I think that would be, the best plan of action. I had a really great time with the Museum of Illusions. I don't know if he did. It was pretty quiet most of the time. We did get some cool pictures together. That was taken by the security guards.
Oh, my God.
It was an interesting experience. But, yeah, Museum of Illusions, not the best first date place.
Unless you're gonna marry them, and then it's fun. It's oh, look at the pictures from our first date.
Or going with friends or something like that. Or when you've already gone on a couple of dates and exactly those pictures, oh, those fun dating pictures, but definitely not the ideal you've never met them before. We hadn't even had a phone call before, and this was the first date. But I'd wanted to go for a while, and I was like, oh, hey, this should be fun. Yeah, museum was interesting. Not the best first date location though.
Yeah.
And I think it's also, aside from being an active participant, it's really important to me how my date treats other people around them. Just in general, let's say we're going out for a meal or we're going out for drinks, it is important to me how they treat other people, showing their compassion, their kindness. And I went out on this really interesting date, and coming from New York City. He lived in New Jersey, so I went to New Jersey to meet him, and it was a very unique date. He got very wet coming to the date, so he was rather drenched when we sat down.
Is it raining?
It was raining.
Oh, okay.
It was raining, but
like, did he pee himself?
No. No, but he was soaked, like dripping wet when we got to the restaurant, and I felt really badly about that because I got dropped off by a car, but he walked there from his apartment. And I didn't know we needed to make a reservation, but he was the one who selected the location. But there was no reservation made, so it was very, very awkward. Thankfully, we were able to get a spot. He was very respectful at that point, so I was like, oh, he has so nicely and so respectfully. Wow. And we ordered food, and the date, it seemed like it was going pretty well. However, they got his food order a little bit wrong. It had to do with the onions. Now, there's a bunch of different types of onions. There's a lot of different ways to cook onions. And I don't know if everyone knows this, but caramelized onions is the same thing as stir-fried onions. It's more or less the same. I'd say caramelized maybe a little bit more cooked, but it's more or less the same thing. It's, onions in a frying pan for a couple of minutes, until they get a little bit translucent, right? So he had wanted onions on his burger. And I don't remember the menu if it specified whether they were cooked onions or raw onions, but they gave him raw purple onions. And this guy threw a temper tantrum. Like, a full-out temper tantrum. And I wasn't really quite sure, what was wrong with his food order either. It took me a little bit to figure out, which part of it was not exactly correct. So he wanted caramelized onions. So we called the waitress over, and he's like, I want caramelized onions. And the waitress was very confused. And she's like, I don't think we have that, sir. And he's like, I want caramelized onions. And it went back and forth for a little bit, and the waitress is clearly getting very flustered. And I'm trying to diffuse the tension a little bit. I'm like, could you maybe stir fry some onions? And she was like, oh yeah, we have those. I'm like, crisis averted. But it was just, it was appalling and frankly a little bit embarrassing about how he treated the wait staff. They meant well, maybe it was just the waitress didn't realize that stir-fried onions are the same as caramelized onions or whatever, vice versa, but it was important to me about how he handled the situation. It could have been handled a bazillion and one ways, but him getting very animated and very upset about that is very telling about him and his character. And it was one of the reasons why I decided it might not have been the best fit. Just friends, happy to have a new friend. Still a good connection at the end of the day. I wasn't disheartened by it, because I view it as hey, new connection made, so still coming out positive at the other end. But it was just very telling and a bit embarrassing about how he treated the other people at the restaurant. And I think that's something that's very important, how they treat other people, because then if they treat other people kindly, strangers kindly, then that's pretty telling and promising that they'll treat the people in their life who are near and dear to their heart very well. So I think that's an important foreshadowing for me. Also, going out to dinner for a first date, I think it's fine, but I don't think it's super necessary. In my opinion, I'd either rather do an activity or ice cream, but that's just me. Something a little bit fun. It's easy. It's not too expensive, and also you could go and get more. You could do more of the activity, something like that. But just an easy way to keep the conversation going, because similar to the other guy. First time meeting him, had a phone call with him, so this was my first interaction, soaking wet, no reservation, food order didn't quite go the way he planned, and it ended up in a bit of a meltdown.
Yeah.
So, it was certainly an adventure. The food was good, I suppose, and the restaurant does really well.
Yeah. Ugh, a temper tantrum. Also, I feel I'm very picky with what I eat. If they got something wrong and I was on a date, maybe I would politely say oh yeah, this wasn't supposed to be this, but most likely I'd just scrape it off and let it slide because it's a date. And not that I would be rude to the wait staff anyways, but I would just be too embarrassed to speak up on a date. I'd be okay, no, I mean, I don't eat onions anyways, so I would have just scraped it off and it would have been fine, and he would have noticed that I scraped it off, and he would have been oh, you could have ordered without. Be I did, but it's okay.
Exactly.
It's happened to me before, and it's fine, and we all lived, and yeah.
And we're all people at the end of the day, too. These wait staff, they're people. This could have been the end of their shift. We gotta cut them some slack. Give people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost anything to do that.
Yeah, I agree. Unless they're, like, really rude back. Like, only sometimes I get rude with waitstaff or people in similar positions. Only when they're, like, giving me attitude first. Like, if I always start off really nice, and then sometimes they'll, like, be very attitude and rude back to me, and I'm like, excuse me. But I try to just, like, kill them with kindness. Be, like, you get, what's the saying? You attract more flies with honey than...
You attract more bees with honey than vinegar, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
You attract more bees with honey than vinegar?
Yeah, you just be, like, really... you're just really sweet. And people respond better when you're just really sweet.
Yeah.
But before we move forward with Lisa's stories, we're going to take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsors. So we'll be right back. Sticky Situations is sponsored by Corona Crush. Are you tired of swiping on dating apps? Tired of guessing whether the cute guy or girl you keep seeing around is Jewish and or single? Then you need to run, not walk, to join Corona Crush. Corona Crush is a Jewish organization working to create Jewish couples always. Corona Crush has over 30 confirmed engagements, over 22,000 members from all over the world, and has set up over 50,000 speed dates. Join the Corona Crush Facebook group and post yourself or have a friend post you and see who reaches out. Fill out the survey to sign up for virtual speed dating events happening every other week. Corona Crush is 100% free and 100% Jewish. Worst case, you end up with some stories of your own. Best case, you find the love of your life. Try it out today. Here on Sticky Situations, we tend to focus on bad dating stories, but sometimes dates do go well and lead to proposals and weddings. Who would have thought? And what do all of those require, you might be asking? Well, the answer is flowers. Who doesn't want flowers from someone they've been seeing? Don't forget, flower petals and bouquets needed for proposals. And that's even before all the flowers that go into weddings. Sticky Situations is sponsored by Primrose Flower Shop. In my opinion, Primrose is the coolest flower shop around and has the best customer service to fulfill all of your floral needs. Primrose offers a range of services from your basic bouquets to subscription services where you can get flowers delivered once a week. They deliver all over the tri-state area, including Manhattan. Primrose does weddings, bar and bat mitzvahs, and other simchas. I've personally been to a wedding where Primrose did the flowers, and the work they did was beyond gorgeous. Primrose additionally offers in-store proposals, including a romantic setup with candles and music. Primrose is located at 2922 Avenue M in Brooklyn, and the phone number is 929-376-9815. You can also follow Primrose on Instagram at PrimroseNY. So, if you can't get someone out of your head, buy them some flowers from Primrose. They'll either love it or they'll find you really creepy. But regardless, the flowers will be out of this world. As listeners of Sticky Situations, we know you love hearing people's best dating stories. Now you can hear dating stories in real time through Date in a Blink, a podcast that lets you eavesdrop on people's first dates. The conversations range from goofy and hilarious, to deep and vulnerable, to sweet and awkward AF. Can you predict which couples match and which don't? Check it out and see how good your guessing skills are. Okay, we're back. Okay, Lisa. Lisa told me she has another story.
Yes. So, definitely, like, all dates, you know, you don't necessarily have that spark with someone, and that's okay. And I had a date. We went to, I think it's called Little Island. Is that Little Island? Mm-hmm. Yeah, the new park. Yeah, Little Island. It's a really nice place. However, I guess I never thought it was quite so little.
I haven't actually been, like, I've seen it.
Yeah.
But I haven't actually been. One of my friends and I kept saying we were going to go all last summer, and then we didn't.
It's a really nice place.
Didn't go this summer either.
It does just happen to be really small. So, like, this guy was like, yeah, I'm more of like a walk and talk type of guy. I'm like, yeah, sure, sounds good to me. So, like, we were walking around, and very quickly we just, like, made a lap around the island, and then we made another lap, and then another lap. So he's like, okay, well, we'll sit down. Like, it was a nice conversation. Definitely got more friend vibes from the date. But I could just say, like, it doesn't always have to be like a super great date, but it's super important to make sure that your date gets home safely. Like that's like he did. So that was, I could say, like the most redeeming thing about the date. Like friend vibes. It was a nice conversation. He has a cool job, nice guy. We have a lot of mutual friends. So he drove me back home, not in a car though, on one of those like moped scooter things that they have around the city.
Cool.
It was so cool. I'd never been on one of those before, and it was awesome. It was such a great experience. Definitely, I've been horseback riding most of my life, but like, damn, that scooter ride was scary. But it was awesome. He did a great job. He got me home safe, which I really appreciated. But I could say like not many of the dates that I've been on like have even a text to make sure that I got home safe. Like maybe they didn't live in the area, but like not even a text that I got home safe. So the date doesn't have to go like super schmooper duper well, but it goes a long way just to show that kindness and consideration for another human being to make sure that they get home safe. So like I do that for friends even when I hang out with them. So like especially like doing that with friends, you should do that when you're going on a date with someone. So
yeah.
So like it was a fine date, little island, like definitely a lot of fun. We went to like evening duskish, so like sunset was really pretty, and the stars were amazing in that area. But yeah, the scooter ride home was really nice, and he was really kind. We were like talking a little bit while he drove me back, so that was really nice. And talking about like kindness and like killing him with kindness, like what Rachel was saying before. So have some of the apps, and on JSwipe, there was this guy who I matched with, and he looked vaguely familiar, but at a certain point on these apps, I mean, everyone kind of looks a little bit vaguely familiar.
Yeah.
So, swiped right on him, and he started up the conversation, and, the conversation was going fine, and then he started to ask some pretty inappropriate and very, very personal questions, like, right off the bat. I'm like, I don't know you. And he's like, well, how can we change that? I'm like, a date. And, he just, like, the conversation proceeded to get, like, more and more inappropriate. And I'm like, but a date. I don't know you. And
yeah.
He was just trying to, like, drive the conversation into a very, like, inappropriate place. I don't feel comfortable going with someone that I just met. And I just kept on being like, can we like meet in person? Like, I want to get to know you first. I don't really feel comfortable answering any of these questions. So he asked for my phone number.
I can't believe you still wanted to talk to him after he like asked you that stuff.
I was like, I don't know, I feel a little feisty. So I'm like, okay. So I gave him my phone number, and he sent me a video message on WhatsApp. And like, okay, a little bit odd, a little different. Okay, I'm trying to be open-minded about the whole thing. And like then the conversation like proceeds to get again inappropriate. And again I'm like, I don't really feel comfortable with this. And he's like, oh, you just can't handle it. I'm like, no thank you. I don't really feel comfortable with this. But I did notice that when he sent me that WhatsApp message, that first like video message of himself, there were previous messages with him on WhatsApp, which means that we matched before, and he gave me his phone number before. So I was like, I'm always curious. So I scrolled back through the messages. No joke. A year ago, I think it was like 11 months ago, less than a year ago, we had the same exact conversation. He sent me a video message. The conversation proceeded to get like very inappropriate. I kept on being like, I really don't feel comfortable with this, and then I shut it down. So like, wow, I'm proud of myself for being consistent, but just like, wow, I just like couldn't believe it. And then I think Rachel had just gotten home from work.
Oh yeah.
I was just like, oh my goodness, Rachel, I can't believe this interaction, like just like so bizarre. And she's like, why, what happened? And I was talking about it with her, and she's like, oh my goodness, I think I've heard about this guy.
Yeah, so basically what happened was, this was like a few weeks before, I had matched with the guy on JSwipe. And we were chatting a bit. He was
with the same guy. Oh
yeah, it was the same guy. He was totally normal with me, like totally like just asking me about like random stuff, like what do I do for work? Like we're talking about work stuff and what do we like to do for fun and all of this. And then eventually he's just like, "Are you Shomer Nagia?" And I'm like, "No, but honestly for me it's a red flag that you're asking me that." And like, granted, in different social circles and different hashkafic levels and different ages, I think, yeah, it is a question that you ask if you're dating. Like, you want to be mindful and respectful if the other person is shomer negia.
For sure.
And for those of you who don't know what that means, it's when you can't touch a member of the opposite gender outside of marriage. So for me, though, I live in the community that we live in is fairly modern.
Yeah.
I don't really assume that people are. I'm not going to go out and like touch guys or whatever. Like, I usually wait until like someone else initiates. But like, I assume most people aren't. Like the default that I assume is not shomer negia. Doesn't mean I'm going to go around and like disrespect people's boundaries. Like, but I'll wait for them to do something and then I can gauge. But a lot of people who are shomer negia are more vocal about it just because it's not really the norm in our community. Like, other communities, yes. Just, like, it happens to be where we live, and especially, like, at my age. Like, I just turned 29, and this guy, I think he was, like, 31, maybe?
Yeah, 31. Because I saw him on J-Swipe again recently.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, no, that's a left swipe on you, sir.
Yeah, and I think he's, like, 31, and I'm like, why are you asking me if I'm shomer negia? Like, we're in our late 20s, early 30s here. Like, who's shomer negia? Like, literally no one. So that's like a red flag in general. It means he comes from a community where people are, and the norm is to be shomer negia, which isn't a bad thing. I'm not like discriminating against people who come from those communities, but the fact that he was asking means he's only looking for one thing. And I've already seen this red flag in a bunch of these guys. I've given you guys my fashivish rant on what I think fashivish is. The guys who can't date you because they really want to like marry a girl who wears skirts and covers her hair, but they think you're really attractive, so they still want to meet up with you, and that means they really just want to hook up with you. They think that just because I wear pants means that I'm going to take them off, and that's just like not it. So like I shut that down immediately. I'm like, I'm not shomer negia, but to me, I don't like that you're asking me that. I think that's really personal.
I never thought about that question being like phrased in that way, like being framed in that way. Like what they're really asking is exactly what you just said. Like, but it's a really good point. Like that, like because we wear pants, like they just assume we're gonna take them off. And I will say, like the beginning of dating, I do try and be upfront. Like I don't really have much of an interest in touching someone in the beginning of dating. So I like to say like I'm like more like physically guarded in the beginning when dating someone because I want to be very purposeful with my touch. So I like to say like I'm not shomer negia necessarily, but like definitely in the beginning of dating, I prefer there to be like stronger physical boundaries just to have like my personal space.
Yeah, and like I tell guys, like I like an emotional connection first, like, and I don't know, but yeah, so this guy immediately, like I shut it down before it got anywhere inappropriate because I was like, I already knew the signs from it, and like I only really knew that from previous experiences, like a lot of previous experiences. To me, it's just a red flag when a guy asks if I'm shomer negia, because it means that he really just wants to hook up, unless you're talking about hashkafa and like where you fall religiously and specific things that you do. But if he just comes right out of the blue and is like, are you shomer negia? Like, no, that's like you're just looking to hook up. Like it's not maybe not every single guy who says that, but 9 times out of 10 that's what it's been from my experience. So I was just like that's a really personal question. I'm not looking for a hookup. If you're just looking for a hookup, I'm not your girl. And he unmatched me. And I was like, okay, rude, but whatever. I guess he was just looking for a hookup. Then, like, 2 days later, my friend texts me, and, like, all my friends know my whole fashivish rant. And my friend texts me, and she's like, ugh, I'm talking to this fashivish guy. And, like, he's driving, and I was like, when my friends tell me they're talking to a guy on J-Swipe, I'm like, which one? Because, like, I know all of them. I've seen them all so many times. So I'm like, which one? So she sends me his name, and I'm like, I literally just talked to him like 2 days ago. Like, I just unmatched. He just wants to hook up. And she's like, I think I talked to him before, and he had a whole different like job and everything, and he tried to do the same thing. He just wanted to hook up. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. Then like a week later, my other friend sends me a text. She's like, this guy is like asking me questions, and I don't know how to answer, and I don't know what to say. I'm like, send me a screenshot. So she sends me a screenshot, or I think she sent me the screenshot when she asked, and I'm like, wait, don't talk to that guy, because I saw it was in her J-Swipe. I'm like, I literally just talked to him, and then my friend talked to him, and he's just looking to hook up. Like, this was the 3rd person in a row who told me about this.
And then we had this conversation.
Then Lisa tells me this story. And then I think like a couple days later, we were like just like saying the story again to someone. And my other friend's like, is it this guy? And she shows us her phone. And I'm like,
it's the same guy.
It's the same guy. And I'm like, can we expose him? Like...
And like the conversation wasn't a little bit inappropriate. It was really inappropriate.
Mine was
he was asking some wild questions, and then crazier yet, he was asking them on JSwipe. And then when we changed to WhatsApp, because I'm like trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, like trying to be like, let's go on a date. Like I actually want to have a conversation with you, get to know you. And then on WhatsApp, not only was it inappropriate the most recent time, but also about a year ago, it was just as inappropriate. He was literally asking the same questions. And, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with those questions, but you don't ask them to complete strangers. It's very inappropriate. And it was just like, wow. I was not expecting that. But also, like, the fact that it wasn't an isolated thing and that, like, he's asking a lot of other women this. It's just like, be careful out there, everyone.
Oh, yeah, and then I think I posted it on my Instagram story. I'm like, if anyone's talking to a guy named this from here, this age on JSwipe, message me. So a different friend of mine messaged me, and she's like, yeah, I just didn't answer him. I'm not going to. I'm like, don't.
Yeah, don't. And seeing him on JSwipe recently, I was like, no, thank you. You know, been there, done that already twice. Like, don't need that in my life. No thanks.
Yeah, not interested.
Yeah. And, if someone is interested in hooking up, like, you know, I'm not saying, like, no, but, like, they need to make that clear. Exactly. Like, just be upfront with people, what people want, like, what you want and what you're looking for. Like, you know, if someone's interested in doing the same thing, they'll say yes to you. But kind of seeming like you're one thing and then you're really just looking for a hookup, like, why do that? Why just...
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. This guy who I was talking to this week, he matches me, and he's like... He matches with me, and then, like, we were talking, and he's like... You seem so amazing, like, you're definitely, he's like, I'm looking for a wife, like, I'm looking to settle down, get married, all this, and he's like, you're exactly what I'm looking for, and this, and making all these plans, and then he, like, says something, like, inappropriate. I'm like, I don't know you, sir, I don't want to talk about this, and then, like, he kept bringing the conversation back to that, and I'm like, no, and he's like, I'm not, like, if you're looking to hook up, great. I'm not your girl for that. I have no interest in hooking up with a stranger. And also, like, but, like, if that's what you're looking for, that's fine. But just stop asking me. Stop pretending that, like, you want something real
you're looking for
and
a wife.
serious.
Exactly, when you're looking for the hookup.
Yeah, and it's clear from your actions on what you're looking for. And he's like, no, but I said this and that. I'm like, okay, but you're also saying all of this.
It's like, don't just flip-flop. You're not a pancake. Stop flipping from one side to the other. Pick a side. What do you want? It will be a lot easier for yourself, for everyone else. Make your intentions clear. I don't think that's a really big ask, but I just wish that intentions would be a lot clearer. Like, what you're looking for. Like, be blunt. Be upfront. It doesn't cost you anything. It probably saves you a lot of time and energy.
Yeah. Also, I really want to post this guy's screenshots on the TikTok, like, from all of us. I literally, every single friend of mine who talks to this JSwipe guy, I
think that made a total of 6. Rachel and I included. I think that makes 6 girls who he did the same exact thing.
Within a month.
Within a month, yeah.
This was all within, like, a couple weeks to a month.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
So
if, I mean, I feel like I shouldn't say his name on the podcast, but if you were talking to a guy who this accurately describes,
a similar interaction,
you can send me a DM on Instagram at StickySituationsPod or send me an email at StickySituationsPod@gmail.com. We would love to add to the screenshot collection. I should make a TikTok out of the screenshots. It would be great. But yeah. So Lisa, do you have any other stories that you want to tell, or anything else to say before we move on to?
I think that's really all the dating stories. I think it's also super important, like, while dating, to make sure, like, you're taking care of yourself. Dude, self-dates are amazing. Go do some fun things yourself. I love plants. Oh, sometimes I will take myself out on a plant shopping date. It's the best thing ever. I will bring a certain amount of money and I will go and spend all of it, and it's great. It's so much fun. And just taking that time to care for yourself. Like, dating isn't easy, and even having the perspective of like, hey, it's a new connection, so no matter what you're winning, it's still meeting a lot of people. It can be a bit overwhelming, so it's really important to take that time to care for yourself. So whether it's a plant date, a movie night, a spa night, a massage, whatever it is, but make sure that you're taking care of yourself, so this way that you can be the best you when meeting new people. I think that's, super underrated, and like people might be like, oh, going to a concert, going to a movie by yourself, it's so embarrassing. No, dude, do it. It's so much fun. You'll meet so many cool people. Or go hiking by yourself. I've met so many cool people while hiking and traveling by myself. Highly recommend. It's so much fun. Do those things for yourself. You'll feel so proud of yourself, and it gives you a breath of fresh air. It's a nice break from dating, but make sure you're taking care and you're doing fun things by yourself too, and you're not waiting to have fun until you meet the right person. So go out there, have some fun, do your thing. Highly recommend. If anyone's looking for suggestions of fun self-dates, let me know. I'm happy to give some suggestions. Just go out there, have some fun. If you're looking for a good plant store, by the way, the Union Square Green Market, best place ever. They have a plant stand there every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday if, Shabbos isn't your thing, or you can walk by on Shabbos. But they have some excellent plants. They also have this whole Instagram. They even post, like, which plant stands are coming, so I'm a big fan, in case you couldn't tell.
Lisa's a big plant she's a plant mom. We got a lot of plants in the apartment. But okay, so I know we've said advice sporadically throughout the episode, but Lisa, can you give my listeners a piece of dating advice?
I say make sure that the words are lining up with their actions. I love reading, and, words are beautiful, and I think words can be amazing, but make sure that you're also listening to the person's actions, because if the two aren't lining up, just to be careful, and to be wise that you're not listening to one more than the other. Make sure that they're equal, and the person's words are matching their actions, and their actions are matching their words.
I like that. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. People are big talkers.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, talk only gets you so far, but at a certain point, you're realizing that their actions are falling flat, and that is a sucky place to be. So just be wary. Keep all your senses about and heightened, and make sure that if they're making big promises, that they're coming through and they're doing those, or if they're doing these big actions, making sure that they're following through in every which way that they said they would.
I agree. That's a good piece of advice. And then, last but not least, Lisa, can you tell my listeners what your Real Housewives tagline is?
So I just started watching Real Housewives, and my roommates, we were talking about the slogan. So this is what we came up with together. So I'm a proud plant mom. My 50-some-odd plants help keep me well rooted.
And if you don't believe her about the 50-some-odd plants, come to our apartment. But don't come to our apartment if you're a creepy stalker. But just take our word for it. There's a lot of plants. People will come into the apartment and ask me about the plants, and I'm like, dude, I don't know. You gotta ask Lisa, not me.
And if anyone wants some plants or plant advice or anything like that, always happy to help schmooze with friends. That's one of the things I like doing, aside from helping people with home improvement projects, with plant questions or plant shopping or things like that. I'm always happy to help, and it's a good problem to have with plants, but when they're growing and they're doing really well, I got to give them a haircut now and again. So if anyone wants cuttings, they grow really well, and they have babies from time to time. So let me know. Happy to hook you up. You can
reach out to the podcast, and I'll put you in touch with Lisa.
There you go. Exactly.
Well, Lisa, it has been a real pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Lisa's been an audience member of a bunch of recordings, so it was fun. She actually got to be in the recording.
Yes, and it's been really enjoyable being an audience member for some of the other podcasts. I've had to work so hard not to spit out my drink sometimes. Or be laughing. I'd have to run into my room to stop myself from laughing because I didn't want to be in the background of the podcast. So really nice to go from being an audience member to recording. Definitely if anyone has some great dating advice, dating stories, by all means reach out to Rachel, join the podcast. It's a fun group to be in, and I don't know, maybe you might have an audience, maybe you might not.
Yeah. Again, another plug to come on the podcast. But yeah, so Lisa, thank you again. This has been great. And Sticky Situation Nation, it's always a pleasure. So you'll catch me next time. Bye, everybody.